Hi everyone, I'm Aditi and I welcome you all to today's webinar on Virtual Employee Retreat. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening to people logging in from different places. So today, Sid, we have people mainly logging in from Singapore, India and UK. And the plan today, guys, is to discuss a different case study than what you've seen in previous webinars. So we are now going to talk about virtual employee retreats. How does it happen? What does it mean? What are the trends? What do we exactly do or mean when we say virtual employee retreat? And how do you exactly set up a retreat? And how do you make it a success? So we're going to share a bit about one of the recent events that we did for one of the biggest law firms in US. And we're going to talk, sort of dive deep about certain nuances that are very, very essential to virtual retreats, employee retreats rather. And I'll let Sid do most of the talking today. So as you know, I head account management for Web Spiders, and E2M being our flagship product on air, which is powering virtual events worldwide now, is going to be the core focus for today. So Sid, welcome on the call and great to have you. Thanks for joining us and let's get started.
Yeah, thanks, Aditi. And please feel free to, make it interactive. Similarly, all the attendees, please feel free to, ask questions on the chat or have any comments on the chat. So today, we'll make it a short session, about 45 minutes in total, and focus on this event that we did, which was a virtual employee retreat. It was one of a kind. Because it was not only a virtual employee retreat, it was for 1,500 people. And it was usually, virtual events or virtual engagement is focused on 1 day or 2 days or 3 days or 5 days. And this was over 3 weeks. So across 21 days, 15 working days. So it was a pretty spectacular session. So right now, I think in Asia, we are having this resurgence again, but regardless of that, we're talking about engagement with colleagues, engagement with employees, which is an everlasting challenge and everlasting opportunity, I would say. So this specific case study is focused on our experience with Husch Blackwell. So that's a leading law firm with offices in more than 17 cities. I think as per the public data, they had more than 450 million in revenues. So, a large-sized law firm. Now, one of the challenges was they wanted to do a virtual employee retreat, but also they just had a month's lead time. So when they decided they wanted to do that, they only had 1 month to prepare, to select a vendor, to get the content in place, to get the programming in place, and all of that. So this was one of their challenges.
So, Sid, if I can understand well, the virtual retreat being one of their core aspects of, having employee retreats or employee events, what exactly is the real challenge? What exactly were you told by Husch Blackwell? What was the background like? If you can give us a direction towards what exactly were their expectations when they contacted you, and how did it really fall in place from them?
So for them, you see, most companies have many events during the year, but they have one flagship employee event. In fact, this is a strategy it's like the annual day that you had in your school days, right? And this is a very popular HR strategy to get the teams together, to award them for the year-long performance, to, for so many things, because as the year goes on, people sort of go into different directions in different teams, and an annual event is almost any growth-oriented company will have that. So their challenge, of course, they had to have everything virtual, because of the situation. But they also needed to have everyone together for a sustained period of engagement. They said, we are not really interested in just having a one-off webinar or a one-off game for 1 day or 2 days, simply because, 1,500 employees is not large, but it's large enough to make sure that they really get something valuable out of it. Now, what happened was that in the real world, they could never have a 15-day event, right? They would have 1 day, 2 day, maximum 3 days. Now, what they did was they used virtual to an advantage where they could have certain key days, like the keynote day, the first day, the last day, and then they had a series of micro events across the 3 week. So everyone just felt that, okay, this is something that's continuing for 3 weeks. And the biggest challenge was that they needed something that would engage people. It should be something that people are drawn to. It should not be a bunch of Zoom links, or it should not be a bunch of, uh, just a meeting request.
Sure.
So, yeah. Now, of course, from the objectives are, of course, the following, connect and reconnect, strengthen relationships, having the company culture. Now, what happens is that, with most companies have, attrition anywhere from 5% to 30, 40% based on which sector you are now. Law firms don't have that kind of attrition, but still there is a steady flow of new colleagues, new employees who join. Now, one of the problems of being remote is how do you establish company culture? Because a lot of the culture that comes in is based on what you happen when you're face to face in the office, right? So that's one of the problems of being remote, is that the new employees or the new recruits, it's hard for them to catch the company culture. So these were some of the objectives. Now, of course, they had a 3-week event. They had 1,500 attendees, and they had 80 hours of content consumption. So across the 3 weeks, just to give you a sense, what it means is that roughly you're talking about 3 hours of content per day. So if you multiply that, so something like 3+ hours of content per day, which is a large amount of content. It's like roughly equivalent to, say, 2 Netflix movies every day.
Absolutely. And Sid, is this one of the largest events virtually that has happened on the platform? Because 3 weeks is a good time. It's a long time.
No, I wouldn't say it is the largest. It is definitely very unique in terms of an employee retreat. Since this event, we have had a large number of our customers even doing it. What they do is that they're doing cadences of 2 weeks, then they take a break, and they do again 2 weeks. So they're sort of taking breaks and doing that across the year now. So what happens is that as people are not in the offices full time, these events act like a magnet for them to come back, reconnect. So that's really important.
Sure. So you mentioned about the 80 hours of content consumption as well. So if you can sort of give me a background about, and our audiences a background about, what type of content is this? Is this something that has been powered by E2M? It is something that has been, given by them. It's on-demand content, which is something that has to be, taken care by us. How does it happen? Can you just probably?
Yeah. So this content, that's a good point. So this content refers to industry practices, best practices. It included guest speakers. So they had, for example, a mentalist. They had entertainment as well. They had keynote speeches. So this does not include peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer is always. Peer-to-peer is always not counted as consumption of content. It's more networking. But I'm talking about more of the fact that the consumption, as in you consuming content from a keynote speaker, your management, you're consuming content from different other sources, guest speakers, and even pre-recorded content which is streamed as live. Yeah.
Sure. So to my attendees, guys, feel free to drop in your questions as we go along, and we will definitely pick it up, and you can even have a poll there. So feel free to ask questions and poke all your clarifications to Sid, so we can take it up while we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And This is one feedback. Shanna has been very kind to give us a testimonial. In fact, if you go to e2m.live, you can see a detailed video where she explains how this went. So this is pretty much one of the many. We're very indebted to all our clients who actually agree and give us testimonials, because it helps us to not only secure new business but grow as a company. In turn, it helps us to service them better. So really thankful about that. So let's jump to some of the core things that happened during the event. So of course, roundtables were so we used they used a number of roundtables, and this was amazing because the number of hours, and this does not include the 12 hours we're talking about. So as you can see, they had these hangout rooms, right, from dog lovers to world travelers to yogis, etc. And it was amazing. It was just people were on it not only during the day, even outside working hours, and this was just absolutely amazing in terms of the usage and the participation. So this was a great one of the great things to hang out, because what you miss in virtual is the ability to hang out. These hangout rooms really gave you that perspective.
It's like grabbing a coffee and sitting down with one of your colleagues in the industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So did they also use it for their own internal meeting setups, or was this purely for networking?
Yeah, so this was open. So this was an open roundtable where they could go anytime. And essentially what people were doing is in between sessions or before the day started or after the day finished, they were using that. But for sure, they had, these one-to-one peer sessions. Over 3 weeks, it was a very well laid out agenda. And of course, they had these more official meetings whether it was a department meeting or a small team meeting, or based on an industry practice. So definitely they had that. Yeah. The other thing was, of course, the brandability. One thing what we want to do is make sure that the attendees always feel as real world as possible. And so even though we use Zoom, but Zoom was well integrated into the platform. We are a major Zoom ISV partner.
Right. So my next question is, so if you can sort of give us an understanding as to how Zoom and the ISV integration that we now have with Zoom, how does that help with the entire show? I mean, does it really make the attendee experience really easy, smooth, or how does it really impact the audience engagement?
Yeah, see, Zoom is a streaming platform, so it's one of the choices that we have. Like, for example, right now we are using the web version based on VPN, based on firewalls. We do provide the option of having Zoom, so you can actually just use your Zoom native app, which is already pre-installed for many people. So those two options are available: the web that we are using now, and the Zoom. But the fact was, it was not like a typical one-off meeting or a one-off link. It was an entire hub and experience which they came to. And so the branding is really important to give a real-world feel. This was really key. This is actually showing another event, but just to show that how the branding can be quite different between different events.
Right. So there is a host of options to choose from.
Yeah. There's a whole gallery. There's a whole gallery in E2M where you can select of branding that you need, for sure. Yeah. Now, also it was multi-day. So what multi-day does is that it allows you to spread the agenda out, and you have multiple tracks, multiple things. And I'll just show you an example of what it could be. So this is just showing you an example of how multi-day agendas could be structured. I mean, how to structure an agenda is like an entire meeting topic on its own.
Absolutely. So I think that is also where the specialty lies. So E2M as a whole, as a producer of the virtual platform, I think is also responsible a lot towards maintaining and managing the entire agenda for the show. I mean, of course, the draft comes in from the client, but then to make sure it is syncing with the various formats of your virtual conference is very important. So how do you address that, Sid, if you can give us an indication on that?
Yeah, so this, as you can see that, for example, the day started, typically the start of the event, you have keynotes, then you have to maintain a cadence. Whenever you're doing a 3-week event, whenever you are doing a multi-month event, the cadence has to be there so that it pulls up people back, because what people are going to attend for a day or two, and then they're going to go back to their day jobs, and they need to be motivated to come back, say during Thursday, Friday, then come back on Monday, and then get back. So it you know it creates that sort of momentum that you would expect in a real world event. So of course, having different tracks is really important, because the moment you're 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 employees, not every session is relevant for you. So once you're done with the keynote and the general sessions, you need to branch out to your division specific, role specific, industry specific discussions, or get together, or those areas. So that is really important there. So we are going a little fast, but I think it's a short event today. But the whole idea is, other than these engagement sessions, they had an amazing library of content. So as an example, they shared the kind of books that was the favorite as a firm, or crowdsourced with the internal employees, so people could get a sense, all the content that is there, which are the various opportunities, which are various templates, were all there in a single place. So that also helped people get context to the different sessions. It helped them download the content as well. So that was really important. Now, other than content, of course, in terms of gamification, having the ability to have gifts, gifts which are based on virtual winners for the leaderboard are really key. Again, it sort of drives engagement across many weeks. So, for example, you can allocate points for different actions, and then you have a leaderboard. Now, this feature may or may not be used based on the firms, based on the company you are, but generally we find that if implementing things like this, we've implemented this in large, financial services companies, some of the largest, retail trade brokers in the world, where we've seen even, the VPs, etc., participating, wanting to get there on the leaderboard, wanting to get the prize. It's not so much about the prize itself, but the whole engagement and the friendly competition that they get is really encouraging, and make sure that, it's like something that people look forward to popping in and out across the day. It's almost like if you're trading, how you keep going back and checking, your portfolio. In the same way, you keep going back. There's an event going on. It's going on for the whole week and many weeks, and that some of your favorite sessions are happening at these times, and you want to keep going back. So that's really the key there. And of course, virtual awards ceremonies, another great strategy, because with these annual events, you want to make sure that, the employees are awarded. Typically, these are pre-recorded sessions, but, having virtual award ceremonies, again, a great way to drive engagement.
So, Sid, is it also possible to sort of have these virtual award ceremonies live? Because you see a lot of, even for the educational use case in that industry, they do a lot of virtual award shows, right? A lot of valedictorian shows. So, do you think that that's also possible to do it absolutely live instead of having it on demand or pre-recorded? Can it also be done?
Honestly, we've seen more of pre-recorded streamed as live, simply because they want, usually in an award ceremony, you want to highlight some key factors, keep skipping some amount of editing, but for sure,
pre-record speaker notes and speaker Thanksgiving notes.
Yeah. Live is absolutely possible, for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, this is just from another event, not this one, but just goes out to show you the further discussions that you can have. Now, another cool thing was, to drive engagement. Now, as I said, one of the objectives of these events was also to give recognition to new colleagues and make sure that they get in touch with other colleagues, right? As you cross the 500,000 people mark, there is always a gap between new employees and how fast they get into the company culture. So they had the ability to badge attendees. So you can see that they had new to the firm, and essentially anybody who was new to the firm, for example here, that person was evident it was new to the firm. People could reach out, talk to those people, request a meeting, do a video call, all of that stuff. And generally we probably understand that they need extra guidance in understanding the culture. So that was really key. I'm just sharing snippets from the whole thing.
So yeah, this is a mix of various events that we've done, and of course primary focus is the case study that we're talking about, which is the virtual retreat. So again, guys, if you have any questions, just pop in them and we'll take it up. So one thing to ask you, Sid, is how much of, because I see extensive ability to brand the platform. And also, the fact that you have these resources, the fact that you have these various types of agendas spread across all the weeks of the event days. How exactly do you manage the back and forth? Do you always suggest that there is a support pack that the customer should subscribe to? How does it really help? Because we need to understand how exactly is the journey from the customer's brief point of view, and at the same time you translating their business requirements into the virtual world.
So definitely there is, to do large events like this, which run for many weeks and many months, you need a team. You need a team for multiple purposes, and some of these team members can be internal. So especially in the US, there is definitely a very big event-oriented business culture. They whether you see technology companies like Apple, etc., who use events as a major key post for their release of the products, to almost all companies, they have event as a culture, and they usually have an event team. Now that event team is focused on the programming of the event, who should do what should be the content, who should come in, for example. And then of course you need, from a support side, for people to be able to set up on the event platform. Now in this case, they used what we call a white glove service, right? So everything, it's all included, batteries included, kind of a deal. No surprise, everything is done. So they had that. But some of our customers, especially who are event agencies, they can do some of that. So in those cases, they take care of structuring the backend. It's not very hard to learn. Our backend is our content management system is pretty robust and simple to learn. So they do that. Some of our customers who use it annually and have been using it for many years, their event teams really know what they need, and they're able to run it themselves. If you're doing it for the first time, then perhaps you're better off to take a sort of a full batteries included, white glove service, so to speak. Now, this was another great example. So now, what we're seeing here is what they call strategy hall. So, for example, you can see that different industry sectors were displayed, and this looks like a booth, but essentially this acted like a center where you could go and talk about and get resources on these topics. So let me show you some more examples there. Like, for example, this was this is an example of like a networking lounge, where you would go and grab a seat and start talking. You could get a copy of all the brochures. You could get your queries answered. So all of them were staffed, right?
Right. And the entire design strategy in terms of how it should be translated and how the entire look should be, I think that's all included within the service that you just mentioned.
Yeah. So what you see is that, we have an amazing template library that can be used and then customized. Of course, when it's a, full batteries included, white glove service, what we call it, then even changes and design templates we do in addition.
Sure.
But as I said, some of our agency customers who in turn do it for the customer clients, they have in-house design teams. They can do it themselves. So yeah. And this gives you an example how you can join the room, as well as you can download resources, company profile, etc. So it's really cool.
Sure. So there is a possibility of a lot of engagement here, Sid. There is a possibility of going into the strategy halls, collecting information, reading about the resources. So there is a huge element of information exchange on the virtual retreat.
Yeah. And especially there's also a module called, exchange your business card. And the moment you do the exchange business card, if it's a commercial booth, this was not a commercial booth, so they didn't have that. But in exchange the business card, you automatically get a copy of all the collaterals on your email, and your contact details are exchanged with the booth owner, so then they can follow up. So that's really useful. This is another view of from another event where how a traditional booth might be structured. We have another template where you can have, let's say, 30 in one view, but
so there is a possibility of sort of customizing this page as well, including the backdrop of it and the booths as well.
Yeah, I mean, customizing as in there's not too much of development. So we have a where you can upload backgrounds and you can select from a library. So it's pretty much point and click. You don't have to really get a, because of course, if you want a real custom, if you want a design that matches your office, your culture, your location, then you can do it. You could do it in something like Canva or if you know Photoshop and do it. If you don't have any staff, then we help you out when you take our support package. So we have optional support packages and we take care of that.
Yeah. But as you rightly pointed, Sid, for the event agencies mainly, I think this is on the point of a click. So as soon as they want to set it up themselves, I think there is a lot of information that is already there on the templates. They can just choose and put up the show entirely for themselves.
Exactly.
Great.
And again, as I said, this is a short. We'll do first this, and then we'll jump to the roundtable. Is one thing that they did was and what we recommend in large events is you theme a week. So every week is themed, right? So one week could be, connecting with, for example, people you've never spoken to before. The other week could be learning about another division. Some week could be training, some week could be entertainment and motivation. So you have guest speakers there. So, you theme every week based on the objectives and the culture of your company. And we find that, that was really productive in setting the programming. Because I think in long events like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, even a year, theming your weeks or months is really important to get the right thing. Because just a random, if you just do a meeting every day, there is not much to say if you don't have a plan. Right? You need to have a plan. You need to make sure that you're delivering based on your plan. Every attendee needs to know that what they're going to expect. And in fact, if you see this, you have something known as my agenda and full agenda on the top right. And what it means is that you can have your own personalized agenda, which is unique to you. So you can have general agenda. You could be mapped to certain sessions which are only applicable to you or your team. So those sessions will not be viewed by others. So this is again an enterprise feature that we have, which allows every attendee to be focused on that. And as we are discussing, we're on our 10th point. But one thing to add is that E2M supports all different kind of streaming formats. So a webinar format like the way we have right now, the roundtable format, which we will jump to after this. We also have, for example, the ability to stream pre-recorded as live. All these tech sessions like the Apple one and the others, you will see that they're streaming a pre-recorded session as live, which has its own benefits. As we saw from the Breast Care Research Foundation, they do a lot of that, and then they raise money. In fact, they raise anywhere from $500,000 to $6 million per event, and those have been very successful. So those are of course there. So yeah. So all different formats essentially are supported.
So I think it's a great mix for people who are planning probably events across the year and they want to maybe go on annual plans with you where they have the platform to themselves. They have like their own branded virtual event platform, and they can have webinars across the year. They can have probably one main virtual conference, and then keep on having various other formats, which could be smaller events. So I think the possibility of having one platform to themselves for a year-long commitment, where they do not really have to change plans or think of various events, they just keep branding it, labeling it, letting you know, and getting things done. I think that's a great possibility.
Right. Yeah, no, and you can see that, I just want to spend maybe, talking about that, like for nonprofits, for example, have been using our platform very successfully for fundraising, for promoting causes, helping out engagement. Because one of the problems is that when you're supporting any cause in a nonprofit, you need these bursts of engagement, right? And traditionally, you went and did a physical event, and now with this whole hybrid momentum, the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, for example, another great example. We're slightly deviating from our employee retreat, but it's the same sort of platform where instead of employees, you are having a retreat with your stakeholders, with your donors, or with the beneficiaries, or with the researchers in case of BCRF. So. Because it provides a very holistic all-in-one. I mean, if you see, for example, there is not really a single platform that gives you all forms of media. Like if you had Zoom only, then it's essentially live webinar or meeting, but it doesn't have streaming. If you just have one-way streaming, then they don't have that. If they have both, then they don't have an expo. They don't have custom agenda, for example, mapping unique agenda to each people. So E2M really, the reason why we've been so successful in the last 1 year and before that as an event software company is because really everything you need, whether it's registration, analytics, all streaming formats, on demand, simulated live meeting rooms. And then again, we support, I know it's sounding a little salesy, but the fact is that it supports really all the formats. So, sometimes when we work with the government, if web is disabled for video, then it works on, you can use Zoom as an app, for example. And being a Zoom partner, the licensing happens automatic. So you don't have to give your own licenses. We automatically provide that.
So I think that's a great thing for, say for especially agencies or even for brands that are planning year-long events, and they have to go ahead and do a lot of back and forth and get licenses purchased separately and then plug them in. So I think for them, they distribute the work to you completely, and then the entire planning, like you said, white glove services is done.
And in fact, there are multiple use cases now. We are almost, my slides are over, but I want to share, for example, take a traditional sales call, right? So you go to a sales Zoom meeting or a Google Meet, and if it's an internal meet, then it's great. It works for a quick catch up or a project discussion. But when you're trying to get a stakeholder, a donor, or a potential customer, now usually when you get them in your office, you do your office very well, right? And you make sure that they're greeted at the reception, they have tea, coffee, etc. Something like this. Let me jump to that. Something like that, right? You want to make them feel, but in the virtual world, you're still treating them without any experience. Now, one of the interesting use cases, what I've seen with E2M, is it's also been used as the de facto sales tool to invite donors, to invite customers for your regular meetings.
Sure.
So when they come, they're greeted with the lobby, they're greeted with a nice background, with the culture, with the design, even with the right music. It gives them the feel of what kind of company, just imagine that experience versus going to a competitor. So it's almost like having a constant expo booth live. That's essentially what it is doing. So it's really changed the game. People who invest in virtual engagement technologies, they understand that this is not only for this year or the last year, but this can be a significant factor to win. Whether it's winning in the employee workspace, whether we're winning in getting new customers or donors, it's a really strategic weapon. It's a very important strategic weapon. And that's really one of the central messages.
I think that's the entire essence of the platform, to be able to go virtual and have everything under one roof and to get the work done absolutely through white glove service. So I think in this case, just to sort of summarize for the attendees, for Husch Blackwell, I think it was an end-to-end white glove service. And the fact that they could rely on us and we've been able to sort of understand the requirements, translate them into the virtual space, and then give them the event, I think that's been the greatest achievement. So I have to sort of give it to our audience as well who've come in today. And, guys, feel free to ask questions. So there is, like Sid is showing on the screen, there is the public pricing that is available on our website, e2m.live, and we have various plans based on various tiers. So you have the free plan that sort of allows you to have a trial and a walkthrough of the platform. Then you have the starter, the professional, and as well as the enterprise plan. And again, the beauty of it is you have both single event as well as multi-event plans. So Sid, do you want to talk something about the pricing as well?
Yeah, I mean, because I know there are a lot of questions I can see that's coming up on pricing. So I thought, since our pricing plans are public, why not share it? So this really gives you a sense of what kind of pricing you're looking at. You can of course do one-off single event as well, and if you're a non-profit, then that gets you additional 20% off, especially for a registered non-profit. If you're a 501c charity or if you're a registered non-profit, then you get an additional 20% off. But and if you just have one event, so this is, for example, usually good for, say, at least if you plan to do 3 events in a year, 5 events and over 25 events in enterprise. But if you're looking for a single event, then again, really, this is your starting point, and then it goes up all the way up there. Now, one thing is that some of the non-profits or some of the smaller companies often talk about, oh, this, it's a big jump from them than, say, buying a Zoom license. But what happens is that the engagement and the sponsorship. So we've also seen we have so many monetization ability, in terms of branding. So you can see on this screen itself, the whole top banner, the logo at the bottom, which says E2M on air. All of this can be branded, custom branded. You can drop in your own logos. You can drop in your sponsor logo, and most of our customers, they see that it's very easy to get monetization ability from these. So,
excellent.
Any other questions? I'm happy to answer right now. Is any other?
Sure. So we'll also be moving into the roundtable right after this. So guys, feel free to drop in there and ask questions to Sid, if any, and you can of course write to us and schedule a consultation session where we can talk about the product. We can show you the live platform and even some of the recent events, glimpses of them as well.
What has been your favorite, Aditi? Just because I know I've been on the spot here, but what has been your favorite in terms of the event? Where have you recently seen?
I think, Sid, it has to be the networking lounge. It has to be the lounge, because when you're in the lounge, I've seen hardly clients wanting to come out of it. So it's like we have to push people. You have to remind them that you're in the lounge for a way longer time than you're supposed to be. So I think the biggest comfort factor here is, apart from the fact that you can have multiple type of sessions, like you said, right, from webinars to on-demand to live sessions, and the beauty of Zoom being integrated to it, I think. And you have the option. You have the option of going either using the default stream or Zoom, streaming. So I think the beauty is the combination and the availability of various formats. And of course, I see that a lot of people have been able to capitalize on the networking lounge, the meeting setups through the networking lounge. So a lot of handshaking, a lot of business interactions have happened there for most of the clients that I've interacted with. And I think another way of looking at it would also be the fact that you can still take the conversations outside the platform once you set up meetings through it. So it's also, like you said, apart from sponsorship, apart from the ability to brand, apart from making sure that the event looks like your event, there's also a way of probably reaching out to these contacts that you've created across the event days. So it's also a lot of lead generation possibility, a lot of meeting setups. So I think that's one of the biggest movement or traction areas I have noticed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing, what events do in general, whether it's in person or virtual. It's just absolutely mind-boggling in terms of the effect it has on engagement. Talking about that non-profit, we had in one case, we have this text to donate feature in BCRF where you can send an SMS to donate, and in one case, one donor who had already pledged $50,000, he actually added 200,000 with one text, and it was like such a big moment because we had a sort of a war room that time with people tracking the event, and it was usually you expect, say, 100,000, 2,000, say, on tops you expect 5,000 with one text, but then with suddenly 200,000 coming in, it was like a huge celebratory moment.
Absolutely. But I think BCRF, they've had, I think one of their best events they have said was with us.
Yeah.
They could have so much of traction on this particular Met Gala that you're talking about. It's like their big party. So for them, I think they raised, what's the number, Sid? What type of amount did they raise?
So they've done several events. Some events they did 450,000. Some events they did one event they did more than 6 million. That was their flagship event, the New York Gala. They did more than 6 million. Sometimes they've done in the middle. So they've done all of that, but it has been a major platform for fundraising for them.
Absolutely.
So,
and the fact that they are still with us and they're doing so many other events across the year and they are utilizing the text board, they're utilizing chat functionalities. I think that's great to sort of
even with BNI, I remember with BNI, there was one gentleman who was there whole night live on the round table. He didn't leave. He didn't switch off. So because I remember that night they had to, they were taking a log and they still saw one round table active, and they were talking all night long. And it was a group of 6-7 people, and they were I don't know what they were doing, but they just didn't leave. In fact, I think some of them just left it, slept, and came back. I don't know. They just wanted to be there. It was an amazing thing. So I think we are right on time. It was a good chat, Aditi. So we welcome you to just join the next session. On the sessions, you can click. The roundtable session will get active in 1, 0. Yep. So it's live now. We'll just head to there. If you click on sessions on the right, click on join. Please do join us there. We welcome to understand what your event experiences are, how it has impacted your journey, and just share some nice nuggets like these, which keep us excited. And whether virtual, in person, hybrid, doesn't matter. I think events really run the world. That's so. I look forward to chatting.
The entire show is about having these events. So yeah, guys, let's catch up there.